What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this video, your brain is running approximately 70,000 thoughts per day, and for most people, 80% of those thoughts are negative? What if I told you that the voice in your head that's constantly worried, constantly predicting doom, constantly replaying embarrassing moments from 5 years ago, isn't actually you? And what if I revealed that there's a simple, scientifically backed method that can completely transform your relationship with anxiety and negative thinking in just 21 days? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to discover the one secret that mental health professionals don't want you to know. The same secret that's helped thousands of people break free from the prison of their own minds and reclaim their peace, their confidence, and their joy. My name is your name, and 3 years ago, I was exactly where you might be right now. I was trapped in a cycle of endless worry, constantly battling thoughts that felt like they were going to consume me alive. I tried therapy, I tried meditation apps, I read every self-help book on the shelf, and nothing seemed to work. The anxiety would come back stronger, the negative thoughts would multiply, and I felt like I was drowning in my own mind. But then I discovered something that changed everything, and today I'm going to share that exact method with you, completely free, because I believe everyone deserves to live without the constant weight of anxiety and negativity. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that the more you try to stop thinking negative thoughts, the stronger they become? Have you ever tried to push away anxiety only to have it return with twice the force? This isn't your fault, and you're not weak. You're actually fighting against one of the most fundamental laws of the human mind, a law that once you understand it, will completely flip your approach to anxiety and negative thinking on its head. Here's what's really happening in your brain when you experience anxiety and negative thoughts. Your amygdala, the ancient part of your brain responsible for survival, is constantly scanning your environment for threats. This system was perfect when we were living in caves and needed to worry about saber-toothed tigers. But in our modern world, this same system treats a work presentation the same way it would treat a life-threatening predator. Your amygdala doesn't know the difference between a real physical threat and the imaginary scenarios your mind creates about what might go wrong tomorrow, next week, or next year. When you experience a trigger, whether it's a stressful situation, a memory, or even just a random thought, your amygdala sounds the alarm. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline flood your system, your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, and your prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking part of your brain, goes offline. This is why when you're anxious, you can't think clearly. You can't reason with yourself, and you feel like you're trapped in a fog of worry and fear. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the key to everything I'm about to teach you. Most people, when they experience anxiety or negative thoughts, they do one of two things. They either try to fight the thoughts, using willpower and logic to push them away, or they get completely consumed by them, believing every worst-case scenario their mind presents as absolute truth. Both of these approaches actually make the problem worse because they are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how your mind works. The secret I'm about to reveal to you is based on a principle that's been known in neuroscience for decades, but has been largely ignored by mainstream psychology. It's called the paradox of control. The more you try to control your thoughts and emotions, the less control you actually have. The more you resist your anxiety, the more it persists. This is because resistance creates tension, and tension creates more of the very thing you're trying to avoid. Think about it this way. If I told you right now, whatever you do, don't think about a pink elephant, what's the first thing that pops into your mind? A pink elephant, right? This is your brain's natural response to resistance. When you tell yourself, I need to stop being anxious, or I shouldn't be thinking these negative thoughts, you're essentially commanding your brain to focus on the very thing you want to avoid. Now, here's where the real breakthrough happens. What if instead of trying to fight your anxiety and negative thoughts, you learned to dance with them? What if instead of seeing them as your enemy, you understood them as messengers trying to tell you something important? What if the key to freedom wasn't in getting rid of these experiences, but in completely changing your relationship with them? This approach is based on cutting-edge research in acceptance and commitment therapy, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and neuroscience. Studies have shown that people who learn to accept and observe their thoughts and emotions without judgment actually experience significantly less anxiety and depression than those who try to suppress or fight these experiences. One study published in the Journal of Anxiety Disorders found that participants who practiced acceptance techniques showed a 78% reduction in anxiety symptoms within just 4 weeks. So what does this look like in practice? Let me walk you through the exact method that transformed my life and the lives of thousands of others. I call it the SPACE method, and each letter represents a crucial step in rewiring your brain's relationship with anxiety and negative thinking. The S stands for stop. When you notice anxiety or negative thoughts arising, instead of immediately trying to fix or change them, simply stop what you're doing. Don't try to analyze why you're feeling this way. Don't try to talk yourself out of it. Just stop and acknowledge that something is happening in your internal experience. The P stands for pause. Take a moment to breathe, not deep breathing exercises or special techniques, just natural, conscious breathing. This pause creates a space between the trigger and your automatic reaction, giving your prefrontal cortex a chance to come back online. The A stands for acknowledge. This is where the magic happens. Instead of fighting your thoughts and feelings, you acknowledge them with curiosity and compassion. You might say something like, "I notice I'm feeling anxious right now," or "I'm having the thought that something terrible is going to happen." This simple shift from "I am anxious" to "I notice I'm feeling anxious" creates a crucial distance between you and your experience. The C stands for choose. Once you've acknowledged what's happening, you have a choice. You can choose to engage with these thoughts and feelings, or you can choose to let them be there while you focus your attention on what truly matters to you in this moment. This isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to feel better. It's about recognizing that you always have a choice in how you respond. The E stands for engage. Finally, you engage with your life in a way that's aligned with your values and goals, regardless of what your anxiety or negative thoughts are telling you. If you value connection, you might call a friend. If you value growth, you might take action on a project that scares you. If you value health, you might go for a walk or prepare a nutritious meal. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds too simple. If it were this easy, wouldn't everyone be doing it? And you're absolutely right to be skeptical. The truth is, this method is simple, but it's not easy. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to go against everything your mind has been programmed to do. Your mind has been running the same patterns for years, possibly decades. Every time you've tried to fight your anxiety or push away negative thoughts, you've strengthened those neural pathways. Every time you've avoided something because of fear, you've taught your brain that the fear was justified. Changing these patterns takes time and consistent practice, but the results are absolutely life-changing. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. I worked with a woman named Sarah who had been struggling with social anxiety for over 15 years. She would spend hours before social events, imagining all the ways she might embarrass herself. She would rehearse conversations in her head, trying to prepare for every possible scenario. And when she did attend social gatherings, she would spend the entire time monitoring herself for signs of awkwardness or rejection. Sarah had tried cognitive behavioral therapy, medication, and various self-help techniques, but nothing seemed to provide lasting relief. When she learned the SPACE method, she was initially resistant. "How can accepting my anxiety help me feel less anxious?" she asked. But she was desperate, so she decided to give it a try. The first time Sarah used the method, she was preparing for her company's holiday party. As usual, her mind started spinning with worst-case scenarios. But instead of trying to stop these thoughts or reassure herself that everything would be fine, she followed the SPACE protocol. She stopped what she was doing, paused to breathe, acknowledged that she was feeling anxious about the party, chose to let the anxiety be there without fighting it, and engaged in getting ready with intention and care. Something remarkable happened. The anxiety didn't disappear, but it lost its grip on her. She was able to get ready without the usual mental torture, and when she arrived at the party, she found herself more present and authentic than she had been in years. Instead of monitoring herself for signs of anxiety, she was actually able to engage in genuine conversations and enjoy herself. Over the following months, Sarah continued to practice this approach. She stopped trying to eliminate her social anxiety and started treating it as information rather than a verdict. She began to understand that her anxiety was actually her mind's way of trying to protect her from potential social rejection, even though this protection was no longer necessary or helpful. Today, Sarah still experiences social anxiety from time to time, but it no longer controls her life. She's been promoted at work, she's developed deeper friendships, and she even started dating again after years of isolation. The difference wasn't that she eliminated her anxiety. The difference was that she learned to have anxiety without being controlled by it. This is the fundamental shift that I want you to understand. Freedom from anxiety and negative thinking doesn't mean never experiencing these things again. It means developing a completely different relationship with them, a relationship based on acceptance rather than resistance, curiosity rather than judgment, and choice rather than automatic reaction. But there's another crucial element to this transformation that most people overlook, and it has to do with understanding the nature of thoughts themselves. Most people believe that their thoughts are facts, that if they think something, it must be important and true. But here's what neuroscience tells us about thoughts. They're nothing more than electrical impulses firing across neural networks in your brain. They have no more inherent meaning or truth than the sound of rain on your window or the feeling of wind on your skin. Your brain produces thoughts automatically, without your conscious control, just like your heart beats and your lungs breathe. Most of these thoughts are completely random. Many are repetitive, and a significant portion are based on outdated information and past experiences that may no longer be relevant to your current situation. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop taking your thoughts so seriously. You stop believing that every worried thought is a prediction you need to prepare for, or that every self-critical thought is an accurate assessment of your worth. You begin to see thoughts for what they really are. Mental events that come and go, like clouds passing through the sky of your awareness. This doesn't mean you ignore all your thoughts or stop using your analytical mind. It means you become more discerning about which thoughts deserve your attention and energy. You learn to distinguish between thoughts that are helpful and thoughts that are just mental noise. You develop what I like to call mental flexibility, the ability to hold your thoughts lightly rather than being crushed by their weight. One of the most powerful exercises I teach for developing this mental flexibility is called Thank Your Mind. When you notice your mind generating anxious or negative thoughts, instead of fighting them or believing them, you simply say, "Thank you, mind, for trying to protect me, but I don't need this particular thought right now." This acknowledgement honors your mind, is intentioned to keep you safe, while giving you the space to choose how you want to respond. Another crucial aspect of overcoming anxiety and negative thinking is understanding the role of uncertainty in your life. Most anxiety stems from your mind's attempt to predict and control future outcomes. Your brain desperately wants to know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and how you can prepare for it. But here's the uncomfortable truth that everyone needs to accept. Life is fundamentally uncertain, and no amount of worry or planning can change that. Uncertainty is not a problem to be solved. It's a fundamental characteristic of being alive. Every single day you wake up not knowing exactly what will happen, who you'll encounter, what challenges you'll face, or what opportunities will arise. And remarkably, you've been navigating this uncertainty your entire life, often quite successfully, even when your anxious mind tells you otherwise. Learning to be comfortable with uncertainty is like developing a muscle. The more you practice sitting with not knowing, the stronger your tolerance becomes. Instead of seeing uncertainty as a threat, you can learn to see it as the space where all possibilities exist, where growth happens, where life unfolds in ways that are often better than anything you could have planned. This brings me to another fundamental principle that will transform your relationship with anxiety and negative thinking: the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is unavoidable in life. You will experience disappointment, loss, rejection, failure, and all the other challenges that come with being human. This pain is natural and temporary, like a storm that passes through. Suffering, on the other hand, is optional. Suffering is what happens when you resist the pain, when you argue with reality, when you tell yourself that things shouldn't be the way they are. Suffering is the mental story you create about your pain, the meaning you assign to it, the future implications you imagine because of it. Most of what we call anxiety and negative thinking is actually suffering, not pain. It's the elaborate stories your mind creates about what might happen, should happen, or shouldn't have happened. When you learn to distinguish between pain and suffering, you can allow the natural pain of life to flow through you without creating the additional layer of mental suffering on top of it. Now let me address something that many people struggle with when they first learn these concepts. You might be thinking, but if I don't worry about things, if I don't think through all the possible problems, won't I be unprepared? Won't bad things happen? This is your mind's way of trying to convince you that anxiety and negative thinking are actually helpful, that they're protecting you from danger. Let me be clear. There's a difference between appropriate planning and preparation and anxious rumination. When you're genuinely planning, you're taking concrete action to address potential challenges. You're gathering information, making decisions, and implementing solutions. This kind of thinking is productive and time-limited. Anxious rumination, on the other hand, is repetitive, circular thinking that doesn't lead to any productive action. It's your mind spinning through the same scenarios over and over again, usually focusing on all the things that could go wrong without actually doing anything to address them. This kind of thinking is not only unproductive, it's actually counterproductive, because it keeps you stuck in a state of stress and prevents you from taking effective action. The goal isn't to stop planning or preparing, it's to learn the difference between helpful problem-solving and anxious rumination, and to engage only in the former. When you catch your mind in rumination mode, you can gently redirect it to either taking concrete action or letting go of what's outside your control. This leads us to one of the most powerful concepts in overcoming anxiety and negative thinking, the circle of control. Imagine 3 concentric circles. The inner circle represents things you have complete control over: your actions, your responses, your effort, your attention, and your choices. The middle circle represents things you have some influence over, but not complete control. Other people's opinions of you, the outcomes of your efforts, your health, your relationships. The outer circle represents things you have no control over whatsoever: the weather, other people's actions, the past, the future, world events. Most anxiety comes from trying to control things in the middle or outer circles. When you focus your energy on what you can't control, you feel powerless and frustrated. But when you redirect your attention to your inner circle, to what you actually can control, you feel empowered and capable. This doesn't mean you stop caring about things in the other circles. It means you engage with them differently. Instead of trying to control your relationship outcomes, you focus on being the kind of partner, friend, or colleague you want to be. Instead of trying to control whether people like you, you focus on being authentic and kind. Instead of trying to control whether you succeed or fail, you focus on giving your best effort and learning from every experience. Let me share another story that illustrates this beautifully. I worked with a man named David who was consumed with worry about his teenage daughter. She had started making choices he didn't approve of, hanging out with friends he didn't like, and becoming increasingly distant from the family. David would lie awake at night imagining all the terrible things that might happen to her, and during the day, he would try to control every aspect of her life, which only pushed her further away. When David learned about the circle of control, he had a profound realization. He couldn't control his daughter's choices, her friends, or her attitude, but he could control how he responded to her, how he communicated with her, and what kind of father he chose to be in each moment. Instead of trying to manage her life, he focused on managing his own responses and actions. The transformation was remarkable. As David stopped trying to control what was outside his circle of control, the relationship with his daughter began to improve. She felt less pressured and more understood, and she gradually started opening up to him again. David's anxiety about her well-being didn't completely disappear, but it no longer dominated his life because he had learned to channel his energy in a more effective direction. Another crucial element in overcoming anxiety and negative thinking is developing what psychologists call psychological flexibility. This is your ability to adapt to changing circumstances, to be present with difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them, and to take action guided by your values, even when you're experiencing discomfort. Psychological flexibility is like being a bamboo tree in a storm. Instead of being rigid and breaking under pressure, you learn to bend and sway while remaining rooted in what matters most to you. You develop the ability to experience anxiety, doubt, fear, or sadness without these emotions derailing your life or preventing you from pursuing your goals. This flexibility comes from practice, specifically the practice of willingly experiencing discomfort in service of your values. Every time you choose to do something that matters to you despite feeling anxious, every time you act with kindness, despite feeling frustrated every time you pursue a goal, despite feeling afraid, you're building psychological flexibility. Most people spend their lives trying to feel good before they do good, but psychological flexibility teaches you to do good regardless of how you feel. This is incredibly liberating because you're no longer at the mercy of your emotional state. You can have anxiety and still give a presentation. You can have self-doubt and still pursue your dreams. You can have negative thoughts and still treat yourself and others with compassion. Now let's talk about setbacks. As you practice these new approaches, you'll sometimes forget and fall back into old patterns. This is completely normal and essential to the process. Setbacks aren't signs of failure. They're opportunities to strengthen your new skills. Every time you catch yourself and redirect, you're building resilience and creating new neural pathways. Treat setbacks as information, not indictments. Instead of, "I'm terrible at this," try, "That's interesting. I went back to old patterns. What can I learn?" This curiosity and self-compassion accelerate progress far more than self-criticism. Most people begin noticing shifts within weeks of consistent practice. You might find you step back from anxious thoughts more quickly, or that negative emotions feel less intense. Significant, lasting change typically takes several months because you're literally rewiring your brain, creating new pathways while weakening old ones. Every moment of practice matters, even when progress isn't immediately visible. As you develop a healthier relationship with anxiety and negative thinking, you naturally develop more compassion for others struggling with their own internal battles. You begin seeing qualities you thought were weaknesses as potential strengths. Your sensitivity makes you empathetic. Your deep thinking makes you thoughtful and wise. Your desire to do well makes you conscientious and caring. Here are practical steps to start implementing today. First, notice your thoughts and emotions with curiosity rather than judgment. Simply observe what's happening internally, without trying to change it. Second, practice the space method when anxiety arises. Stop, pause, acknowledge, choose, engage. Third, identify your circle of control in stressful situations and focus your energy there. Fourth, practice willingness to experience discomfort in service of your values by taking one small aligned action daily. Finally, treat yourself with the compassion you'd show a good friend. The secret to ending anxiety and negative thinking isn't eliminating these experiences. It's transforming your relationship with them, learning to dance with uncertainty rather than fighting it, choosing your response rather than being controlled by reactions. You are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, and you are far more resilient than your anxious mind believes. Your anxiety has been trying to protect you, and you can thank it while choosing a different way forward. True freedom comes from developing skills to navigate all life's experiences with grace and resilience, reclaiming your power to choose your response and live according to your values, regardless of what your mind tells you.